We're recording. We're live. If you want to smash that retweet. Good morning, everybody. I am on cup of coffee number 2. Happy Sunday to everybody. You're still what?
I'm still on number 1, and it's iced coffee. Still.
We'll kill you of that habit at some point. Hot coffee. It's 37 degrees outside or whatever it is. You gotta drink some hot coffee. Hot.
But it's like cold in my apartment.
And you're drinking iced coffee?
Yeah. I like under like a nice blanket, like a sweatshirt with like iced coffee, and you're like snugly warm, you know what I mean?
My wife got a gift recently from one of her friends, an Uggs blanket.
Yeah.
Are you aware of this?
I am aware of this because Uggs, first of all, I have a pair. I do not wear them outside my house. Okay. Like that is a no-go. No-go for me.
I think it's fine.
Sweatpants outside the house, Uggs outside the house, no way. Okay. But they're starting to branch out into like blankets.
Yeah. Let me tell you, if you get somebody an Ugg blanket for Christmas, they're gonna like you. This blanket, I mean, her friend got it from like, all right, let me see this blanket. She's like, feel this blanket. I was like, felt the blanket. I was like, damn, that's a damn good blanket. That's a really nice blanket. So, Uggs. This episode is sponsored by Uggs.
No,
not really. Not. No, it's not.
But yeah, Jeff, this week, I got an email from MassGOP that was actually really good.
Oh, wait, whoa. Stop. You did not get an email, because I got an email from MassGOP that was really bad. Do you know why? Because they sent out
like 3, right? I think they sent out 3 this week.
They sent out the delegate list.
Oh, yeah.
They sent out the delegate list, and the party's headquarters are in Woburn, Massachusetts. And they left out the number of delegates that would be included. They enlisted every town in Massachusetts. Do you know what town they forgot?
Woburn.
They forgot Woburn. And then they send out a corrected version with the same link. I click on it. Do you know what they did?
What?
They forgot Woburn again.
Oh my God.
It wasn't on there. And to this day, I will go check the link now, because it's a hyperlink and it will shoot you to whatever page is updated. I don't know if it's updated, but maybe it is. I stopped checking after like the second or third time they sent out the revised email, and they screwed it up. But okay, if they sent one good email, what was that email about?
Well, it was an article discussing the Hispanic shifts to the GOP nationally. And we have them in Massachusetts. We've discussed it on the podcast that, the Hispanic community in Lynn, Lowell, and Falls River, they trended towards Trump.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not that complicated to figure out. Immigrants come here to seek a better life. They work hard, They achieve that life, they gain some success, and then they realize that there's a political party that wants to punish them for their success and take all that away. They're called the Democrats. And then more people become wise to this. They become more American, ergo more Republican. And then the voter shift happens. The unfortunate part of it is you receive that email, but we're not going to be able to act on that email because of the massive incompetence at state party headquarters. I mean, you're right. It's an incredible opportunity.
National GOP will be benefiting from this. And again, Hispanic immigrants, Hispanic communities, they did vote trend Democrat for a long time. They're now trending R, and a lot of it is they're hardworking people. They believe in our country, that our country is good. And they're, if they're first or second generation, they fought to come here. I mean, from countries that were destabilized, and they believe in it. When you go to like a naturalization ceremony, have you ever been to one, Jeff?
I have not.
My dad volunteers at them. And so when he goes, the people who become American citizens, they're so proud of receiving that flag and constitution. They're, that would be something we would have a natural into, because, Republicans were proud of this country. And our political opponents, the Democrats, they're not, and they promote that, everything negative about it. So the Hispanic shifts to the GOP, it's been a natural way coming. I see Democrats on the other side of the aisle shitting their pants over this. And, you know, why don't you, I mean, that's the thing, like, it is natural that they would be coming over to the Republican Party. We believe in the promise of America. We believe in entrepreneurship. And so, yeah, like, it's just natural, I think, that they would be shifting back.
Yeah, I think it bodes well for us nationally with competent people in charge of state parties and the national party, and we'll do just fine. Here in Massachusetts, I wouldn't hold my breath. I think, you know, they're
yet to be seen, right? And yeah, we're not so positive.
No, it could be like 2010 if we were poised to do that. Honestly, you could just put a bunch of people on the ballot, and quite a few of them would pick up. If we just had a functioning apparatus, we'd pick up House seats and maybe a few state Senate seats.
Remember, Jeff, you can't talk about how that it's not functioning, right? Like, you'd be labeled a mean girl.
Are we punching right? Is that what they say? Fucking idiots. Anyway,
don't punch right, guys.
Don't punch right. But if you're on the right, somebody's going to punch you, and you can't punch back, or else you're punching right. Like, oh, by the way, go over to the Patreon. We just did a good episode on the NatCon populists. Heads up to Populist L's at Populist L's on Twitter. Good. We're firmly in the camp of taking on the NatCon silliness and the populist silliness, even including Tucker, and including you know, some of the prominent voices that think they're so based, which is just cringy. Anyway. First up on our topic list is Rachel Rollins. Now, let me set this up for everybody. This is a clip. This is a few years old, and I'm going to share the audio with you, Caitlin. If I can share screen, advanced sharing. Oh, wait, here we go. Hang on. Here we go. So we're going to do this for everybody at home, and hopefully it works.
Can we speak to you for 1 second, Ms. Rollins?
You're in front of my house with my children?
We literally just pulled up here.
Yeah, but how do you know where I live?
Oh, it's public record, ma'am.
Right, okay. That's unbelievable.
We're not stalking you at all.
But my kids are inside.
Oh, we never even knocked the door. We were just parking here trying to figure out where we were going, and someone said we saw you here. So.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
There's something to see here.
Yeah.
We did.
I'm going to please make sure that you're in front of my house with my children inside. And you're going to put this on here.
This is your house.
Yeah, so as a black woman, in this moment, in this country, you're going to put my house on the screen?
No, ma'am. We're just here approaching you to ask you a question.
Get away from my family. Speak to me at my job. If I get hurt or harmed because of this, you are on the record for that. Or my kids are killed.
Listen.
Who do you think you are? This is private property.
Okay,
get out of here.
Get out.
And you know what I'll do? I'll call the police on you and make an allegation, and we'll see how that works with you.
Absolutely.
So the rantings of a white woman get you here and scare my children?
No.
Get off of our private property.
We're here
and I swear to God, I'm dead serious. I will find your name. You can ask me somewhere else. Do not have a camera in front of my house.
I can give you my name.
Get them out of here. This is the Boston Police. I will have you arrested. I swear to God.
Okay.
My children are going to be hurt.
We're just here to ask a question. You didn't even know where you live.
Get away from my house. I'm serious.
When someone said we
Please.
saw you.
Please.
Okay, we're going to step away.
Thank you.
Okay.
Out of respect.
Fox 25 investigates. It's a reporter. It's a reporter asking her, and here's why they were asking her. Now, look, if you're a little behind the scenes thing, if you were up on Beacon Hill or Boston and you know Rachel Rollins is not a big fan of white people. She's pretty racist. It's bad. And she's using, I mean, you heard it in that clip, like you, a white woman, you know, what she's talking about there is I believe she had a state issued vehicle with, sirens and lights on it, and she was stuck in traffic, and she flipped them on to avoid the traffic and get people to move away, and she got called on it, and so people wanted to talk to her about it. It's an abuse of your power, an abuse of your position. Now, somebody then early on in the Baker administration did that as well, and they were fired for it appropriately. You can't do that kind of thing. That's for emergencies. That's why you get those vehicles. So I believe that's what they were asking her about. And she immediately plays victim, right? I'm a victim. I'm going to get hurt. People are going to come after me. By the way, this is the sitting district attorney for Suffolk County, soon to be U.S. attorney. And this is how she is, vindictive, like, watch out. Like, it's not a good thing when somebody in a position of power, and she has a lot of power.
She has a lot of power.
And plays victim with an abuse of that power. Now, clearly the woman in the video, it's funny how she just backs down immediately and should have been a better reporter and said, well, why don't you respond to the allegations that you inappropriately used your vehicle to get out of traffic or something? Do you think that's appropriately? But Rollins goes on the offensive, as attorneys do. You flip the whole narrative and you go back after them. But the idea that she was under threat or her kids were under threat because Fox 25 goes to her house to ask her questions that they won't get answers to when they ask her through the appropriate channels because she dodges them. This is bad. She got appointed through technically 51 votes. I think Kamala Harris had to vote for her to become U.S. attorney.
Yep.
This is taking place, all over the country. Chesa Boudin out in San Francisco. These attorneys, these district attorneys, these are not prosecuting certain levels of crime. We're lucky in Boston it hasn't affected us like San Francisco or L.A., which there's
I don't think that Boston, as progressive as it elects people, would allow that. There's still some concern for public safety here. My concern is that if it goes deeper and becomes more toxic, their rhetoric, that it's going to, over time, allow it to be like San Francisco. That's my biggest concern. I mean, I live in an area where the police are a force.
It's certainly possible. There's one interesting thing that a lot of people don't think about here in Boston or in Massachusetts. Boston is the capital city. New York City is not the capital of New York. It's Albany. Sacramento is the capital of California. I forget what it is in Illinois. Springfield, maybe. But it's not Chicago, right? And they did this for one reason. The founders were probably pretty smart because they knew that the corruption of those big cities the governing bodies needed to literally be away from. At least that's what I read a million years ago about it. But Boston is the capital city of Massachusetts, so we have. They have this city cops, but also you have the state police, and the state police are not, it's not Suffolk County that would prosecute you. It'd be the state of Massachusetts. I think that depending on who arrests you, what kind of case it is, those things. But the state police have powers that are slightly different from Boston police, and the way that they're prosecuted is slightly different. So. It affects it. They've been bragging about how all these policies went into effect that Rachel Rollins did, which a slew of district attorneys across the country have implemented. And I guess the argument is, well, none of the stuff that happened everywhere else happened in Boston, so it worked here. And I'm like, well, but it didn't work literally everywhere else. Didn't work in LA.
I mean, right now,
didn't work in San Francisco.
Right now, they're looking at crime rates and saying that crime is going down. And the issue that they're saying the reason why they're saying crime is going down is because, you can't call the police unless it's $900 worth of stolen items.
$950. Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's a high bar. And so you're not going to report that to police if it happens, right? So the crime did happen. And you're not reporting it to the police. And that's one of the reasons why you see those stats going down. That's one of the reasons why in San Francisco, they're like, well, Chastity Boudin is doing such a good job. But then we see all these videos of Walgreens getting looted out in broad daylight, or open robberies in San Francisco. And it's now Chastity Boudin might be recalled. I mean, he probably won't be, but Yeah, I mean, that stuff concerns me, Jeff. I mean, when I see, I've never actually seen a robbery happen. But in Boston, like,
I've seen them happen. I've seen them happen in Boston. I've seen people get mugged in Boston on Newbury Street.
My dad stopped a mugging when he was here. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. And yeah, it happened downtown. I wasn't with him, but
yeah. No, it was funny. I was like, this years ago.
Girl, and my dad was like, no, like, you're not going after this woman.
Well, this was a few blocks away from me. I just saw, the perp running down the street with a purse, and a guy running after him, caught up to him, yanked the purse away and pushed, the criminal off, and then like went back to, I'm assuming his wife or girlfriend, and then walked back in the other direction. So caught up to him. There wasn't like a fight that ensued. He just caught the guy, grabbed the stuff and took off. But yeah, no, this was a few years ago. It's a big city. It happens. But you look at, there was an interesting thread on Twitter I read the other day and I've seen videos of this. What's going on in LA specifically is that people are walking into restaurants, masked, sunglasses, armed, walk up to a table, stick up the table, stick a gun in the face of the people eating there. They're like, give me your cell phone, your wallet, your keys, your cash, everything. And the people are like having dinner, literally don't know what's going on. Somebody puts a gun in their face. You're like, holy shit. And you give it up. So like the number of concealed carry permits has skyrocketed. It's happening in Beverly Hills. There's home invasions now in Beverly Hills and Bel Air, all these rich hoity-toity places. And it's a real problem. And it stems from them not prosecuting these lower level crimes and keeping people off the streets that are more apt to do it. And one of the officers quoted in the article, or I guess the thread of the article, is saying, like, if you caught this person doing such and such a crime, he said they usually have done that exact crime 30 or 35 more times. This just happens to be the first time they get caught. And it's a mindset. This is the mindset now of the U.S. Attorney, Rachel Rollins. It's the mindset of a lot of district attorneys across the country. It is part of the reason they believe in decarceration. They believe that America is an oppressive state, and that, that in order to sort of get...
This is like Boston, which is like super highly progressive at times. So they believe that the United States is oppressive. An oppressive police prison pipeline, like, it's just nonsense. I mean, you have to prosecute even smaller crime.
Yeah. No, 2022 will be a wave year because they're not going to stop on this. And the Democrats on the side that recognize this, they're not going to have enough prominence and power to shut down.
I think the moderates recognize it and they're not saying anything, which is like one of that.
They're scared. They're scared to be called all the silly names that progressives will call them. Speaking of silly names, the communist, Saule Omarova, withdrew their nomination.
Yeah. Which means that she lost Dem votes.
Right. So I like this one. So she grew up in the Soviet Union. Do I have that right?
She's from one of the stands. Is it Kazakhstan?
I don't know.
It's not Turkmenistan. It's not. She's from one of the stands. And so that was a Soviet satellite, like we talked about on the other podcast with Putin and Soviet satellites, like Ukraine was. And so, yeah, that's where she grew up. She received the Lenin Scholarship to go to college.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that back when she went to college, the Soviet Union at the time was liberalizing. I can't even say that. They were becoming more liberal. Okay. It was post-Stalin into, I can never pronounce their last names right, into Khrushchev, who was obviously more liberal than Stalin was. So there was no there was probably social stigma if you didn't take the scholarship or anything, but if you took the scholarship, you were a communist.
And I'm pretty sure her thesis was on communism, right? So or supporting it. She refused to give a copy of this thesis
in the documents that you have to turn over in order to go through this nomination. And that's suspect. If you can't hand over this document, and trust me, you probably have a copy of it. Like my mom has all of her master's degree theses. My husband does too. And I have all of my old college papers. You keep that stuff. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, she refused to turn it over. She refused to discuss it. I believe when Senator Kennedy of Louisiana called her comrade, he was discussing some of her Facebook activity, actually. And her Facebook activity is within socialist Facebook groups. And so when you say that you're not a socialist or a communist, and up until 2019 you're sharing socialist ideas on the internet, then you're a socialist and you're edging on Marxism. So yeah, I mean, having a person like that is concerning. She did actually work in the George W. Bush administration. I think it was a lower level position, not requiring a confirmation hearing.
Interesting.
Yeah. She's worked in government before, but now this is comptroller of the Treasury. That is a big job. And so some of her ideas were crazy, Jeff. I mean, she literally believed that you shouldn't have a private bank account. Like the government pretty much can go into everybody's bank account.
A lot of progressives, communists, socialists believe this. I mean, it's scary, and they're in positions of power. I think what the cliched Overton window has shifted so much for them that they don't know that this is not normal. Like, a person who has these beliefs in a position of power, the rest of the country, the normal people, understand that person should not be anywhere near the levers of power. But if you're vetting these candidates, if you're nominating them, you're so deep in the bubble that you're abnormal yourself if you're on his staff and picking these people, because you just don't get it. You're so surrounded by the liberal talking points, the progressive agitprop, all this stuff. The
biggest concerning thing here is that she has fringe ideas, and that the fact that the Biden administration, which ran that they were politically moderate, which is bullshit, and we all knew that from the beginning, is promoting somebody who has fringe ideas to an important position that requires a confirmation hearing in the Senate is concerning. And so when conservatives call Biden a socialist, like you're nominating literal Marxists. So what do you want us to say?
He has, for somebody who ran as the quote unquote like non-progressive candidate, just down the middle, and
this is why I think he's an empty suit.
Yeah, he really has abandoned all of that. And they said, was it oh geez, I moved the light. There we go. With my foot. They played a little clip on the Ruthless podcast of him saying, well, this is going to go down as one of the most progressive administrations in history. And he's trying to be FDR. He's trying to be LBJ. And you're
never going to be FDR. Yeah. FDR had super trifectas in both the Senate and the House.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I guess I know this history. Congress was able to pass bills in the morning from the House to the Senate and back and forth, and they would be on FDR's desk by noon, and he would sign it. Okay, that's essentially how a lot of these social programs were passed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the big one was it the original Social Security bill? That's how that one was
Social
passed.
Security, a lot of the New Deal spending, a lot of the big bureaucracies of the New Deal.
Biden was never going to have that. Never going to have that. So he's pandering.
But he's acting like the problem is he's acting like he is. He's acting like he does have those mandates, and he doesn't have those mandates.
He doesn't. He doesn't, because if he did, BBB would have been passed by now, and Manchin's been holding it up, because again, Manchin represents a Trump 30 plus state, and inflation really hurts rural people. I don't understand how people are not understanding his current position. But anyway, Biden, panders this nostalgic thing back to FDR, and it's so strange, but back to Saule Omarova. She was clearly fringe, and her nomination should have been defeated by Democrats. You know, it was Manchin and I think John Tester out of Montana.
But they don't, like, this is what I'm wondering. Who's putting these people up for nomination in this administration, knowing that, I mean, I guess they're just trying to slide everybody through. We just talked about it, like Rachel Rollins. Like, there's clips of her. Like, that clip was from a few years ago. Yeah. And you know that's not going to, like, it's going to make you look terrible. There's other district attorneys out there. There's other nominees for comptroller of the Treasury. There's other people that wouldn't cause you as many problems, but they don't care because they're trying to run this as a hardcore progressive administration. And it's just, it's you know what? It bodes well. It doesn't bode well for the country because we've got another year of this before some brakes can be put on it when we take back the House and probably the Senate. You know what? Definitely the Senate. I'm going to start speaking in a positive way. We're going to take back the House and the Senate, but we still have another 2 years after that of the Biden administration doing a lot of damage. So, you know, politically, yeah, good for our side, but not good for the country. And there's not a lot we're going to be able to do for the next 3 years because inflation is still going to creep up or jump up like it has recently. And Manchin's right. And people act like Manchin is the problem with holding back Build Back Better. It's like, no, there's also 50 Republican senators who are like, this is nuts. And there's probably a handful of Democrats going, no, kill this thing because it's going to make things worse. But they won't speak up because they know it. They're trying to play this cute little game that they understand that they're going to lose. All right, next up, KFC. Kevin Francis Clancy of Barstool Sports was earlier this week ripping on Kyle Rittenhouse because Kyle had sat down for one of the Blazes podcasts, and he's like, what, an 18-year-old kid, and you know they're goofing around talking about like what he like. They ask him what kind of girls he likes, and he says, "Oh, I like them thick. I like boobs." You know, and then Kevin's, you know, clutching his pearls that was so cringy and corny, and I'm like aside from the fact that everybody dunked on him about his affair, which was kind of merited, dude. Like, you're in the public spotlight, you cheated on your pregnant wife, man. Like, that's pretty shitty. pretty shitty. But also without the hint of self-awareness of how cringy the Ask the Internet dumb little clips that you have actual people with talent on, all the comedians you have on and the porn stars you have on and all the utterly cringe-inducing questions you ask them, and then like the forced laughter that comes through it. I mean, come on, man. Like, have some self-awareness. Like, Barstool, let's go. Like, Dave Portnoy's very funny. Dan Katz is very funny. Francis Ellis, who they've had to fire.
They're all very funny. Like, I do have to say, they're all very funny. Like, that's one of the things that's like so funny about this. It's like, hey, KFC, like, you realize that Barstool built its empire on boobs and sports. Like,
Kyle Rittenhouse's age demographic is exactly what they should, and he's all just, you know, give me a break, man. Ask the Internet is not that creative, you know, and it's as cringy as what they did on that Blaze podcast. So it's a bit ridiculous that he's talking about this.
I think a lot of people are like, Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't be doing podcasts or interviews. I don't really think that you can talk for him or give him advice on what's happening. It clearly was dramatic. If he goes on and he gives his personal opinion, that changes your perception of him. I mean, he seems like a typical teenage or, you know, late teens guy. Like, that's what I got from these podcasts. And for KFC, some 30-year-old loser on Barstool tweeted on his.
He's 35.
I will say that he's a loser. Like, when you cheat on your pregnant wife and then you come back and you shit on, you know, dick and fart jokes in sports, like, shut up. No one wants to listen to your whining and bitching on the internet.
Yeah, I've always thought that he's kind of, you know, second or third tier talent over there. I mean, he's a decent broadcaster. I think that's a low bar to clear, but whatever. You know, just like that. But he's always been a lib. He's always been liberal. He's always been liberal. Like, this is the thing about this is the when it was a question of a year ago talking about cancel culture, it's like cancel culture doesn't exist. It's like, well, but if somebody tries to cancel you, it's because you deserved it. It's like, no, fuckhead.
Well, the reason why I wasn't canceled was because Dave Portnoy was his boss, and he was nice enough not to fire him after it came out that he cheated on his pregnant wife, causing a controversy. Yeah. You were lucky that you didn't lose your fucking job over your own decision.
If KFC was in charge of Barstool, that company would no longer exist because they would have folded to the social pressures of whatever controversy, and there's been a litany of them at the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Dave holding the line, and Kevin sort of like sheepishly bowing out, and some of the others because they feel the pressure because they're libs. They're New York libs. They there's a part of them that thinks that they're wrong for what they do, and they're willing to eat shit from the crazy leftists that go after them and try to avoid it. And the thing is, you can't avoid it. Look what Business Insider tried to do to Dave a few weeks ago. I mean, like, fiction that they wrote up to, one, tank that company because he's against the mandates, he's against the lockdowns. He interviewed Trump. I don't think Dave Portnoy is particularly political, but it's sort of like if you don't hop on the leftist bandwagon in media, you're just on the other side. You're put in that other category. You can't play the middle ground.
Right. The new South Park Republican is now the Barstool Republican, right? So you get all these like sports bros who are semi-conservative that follow Barstool. And, the thing is like, dude, like KFC, we know that you're a lib. Like, you don't have like this like shiny past where you have nothing on it. Like, we know what happened. So for you to go after Kyle Rittenhouse and call him a loser, like, it is possible to find a bigger loser than Kyle Rittenhouse because Rittenhouse doesn't seem like a loser, but you're the loser.
Well, buddy. With Rittenhouse, this is interesting. I don't know if he should be doing all those podcasts at all. And aside from what KFC said about him, like with that silliness, but like, does this affect? He might get sued in civil court from the families of the guys he shot. He's trying to build a case against media. I
think the civil. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I think that the civil court, what the testimony of the two guys, kind of hurt their own civil court case.
Probably.
I don't know, but at the same time, it's like that type of behavior wouldn't be like upheld in a civil court case as anything. It's usually just talking about himself and what his beliefs are.
But you take a look, to a lesser degree, the severity of the case. But the Covington Catholic kids, they got an undisclosed millions, right, from all the media that they sued.
I've actually listened to the Covington Catholic. So Covington Catholic is actually a Catholic school in Kentucky. We used to play at where I went to high school. We used to play their sister school all the time in sports. Those kids they're okay. Like, that's the thing. Like, I never really had an opinion about Covington Catholic, but when this story broke out, I kept on saying to people, I'm like, if this were the case and this is what happened, I don't think you understand that the Archdiocese of Cincinnati? I don't think they're in Louisville, but the Archdiocese would come down so hard on these kids. Where I went to high school, it would have been like the Archdiocese of Louisville would have thrown you under the bus, and then you'd have to like go confess to the Archbishop.
But notice what happened after it got cleared up and they sued. They did a couple. The kid did a couple interviews. I forget the kid's name, but
he still does interviews. I mean, like I was in a Twitter space discussion with him where he talks about like basically what happened. He talked about Lynn Wood at length.
Wait, that's right. Okay, because that's an interesting wrinkle in this whole situation, right? The Covington Catholic kids hired Lynn Wood, got paid, and then Rittenhouse also hired him, but Rittenhouse is actually hates the guy now because he tried to screw him over, and Lynn Wood lost his goddamn mind, and is a total grifter. But yeah, that's an interesting like dynamic between Covington Catholic and Rittenhouse. Both hired Lynn Wood, as their attorneys.
Yeah. So if you all didn't know about Lin Wood actually represented Richard Jewell, the guy that was kind of slandered by the Atlanta Journal after the Olympic bombing, because he had found the backpack and they kind of insinuated that he planted it there.
Right.
Lin Wood was his attorney. So Lin Wood actually used to be sane. And so he represented Nick Sandman in the Twitter space with Salmon. He discussed how Lin Wood changed over time, and it just became that he couldn't keep a professional relationship with him.
Yeah.
So
I think that guy had a psychotic break. He's really deep into the conspiracy stuff now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And good for Rittenhouse coming out and saying this. It needed to be said, and it shouldn't have reached a point where, Lin Wood screwed over Kyle Rittenhouse for the right to understand that Lin Wood is not really the best person to ever believe in. So, yeah, and that was clear from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, with Rittenhouse, I mean, good luck to the kid. I don't know if it's I'm thinking about whether doing all these podcasts is a good move for him, but hey, it's his choice. He's still young. I wouldn't want to see it come back.
It's not causing a ton of controversy right now. So the only people who are upset about it are the people that he's doing a ton of podcasts.
KFC.
I mean, KFC.
KFC's real bent out
for the
of shape
first
about
time. He is offended by boobs. So
yeah. All right. We're going to wrap up this episode of the RINO podcast. Head on over to Patreon, only $1 a month. Patreon.com/RINOpod, where we cover the NatCon isolationist, populist love of Tucker being wrong about Ukraine, and among other things. We are not sponsored by UGG blankets. And we will see you. We're probably going to do one more episode and then take Christmas and New Year's off. So anything else, Kaylin?
No. Have a good week, guys.
All right. Enjoy your week, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.